Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Now, each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by Leigh Sevin, who is co-founder at Endear. So, hello, Leigh. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and speak with us. So, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and the company that you work at?
I'm Leigh Sevin. I'm co-founder of a company called Endear. We are based here in New York City. Endear is a CRM for omnichannel retail brands. So our objective is to provide the same sort of software that tech companies have through companies like HubSpot or Salesforce, and provide that same platform to consumer businesses so that their salespeople have all the data they need to keep in touch with customers over email and text and really understand the segment, and they'll be able to track how their outreach converts into sales for the business, both in-store and online.
It's a great name, Endear. How'd you come up with that name?
We actually used to be called Arthur, and a lot of people liked the name Arthur. A lot of people hated the name Arthur. I think the reason we changed it is that Arthur didn't mean anything. It was a relic of, quite frankly, earlier iterations of the business. And so when we were rebranding, what we really wanted to focus on was the concept of authentic relationship building, which we feel like is at the heart of what Endear does. It's about, you do all this marketing, you try to acquire all these customers. Quite frankly, it's expensive. Now, how are you going to hold on to them? How are you going to make them stick around and continue to choose your brand over your competitors? And to us, the answer is authentic relationship building, really making sure they feel connected to you. And so we were just looking for terms and words that evoked that idea. And Endear, quite frankly, then checked that box, most importantly, but also checked all the other boxes, which is like, no one was already using it. You could spell it normally, you could pronounce it and understand it, and all the social media handles were available. So that as a combination really worked for us, and we just stuck with that.
Amazing. And can you just share a little bit about your journey and elucidate how Endear came into existence?
Yeah, sure. So my co-founder and I met through the Venture for America Fellowship. My co-founder, Janesh Shah, and I have been working together now since 2016. But that, we joke that all we did in 2016 was incorporate an entity. We had a bunch of sort of false starts and minor successes. And then in 2019, through an earlier iteration, we really landed on Endear as a concept. And that's when we really launched this iteration, this company, this app as a Shopify app. So most of our customers are built on Shopify, at least for e-commerce, if not for e-commerce and in-store POS. And so our journey really was always in retail, always in consumer, but it really took hold once we saw this foundational problem within the physical retail world, which is that e-commerce technology had just blown everyone away. It was taking over. Everyone was convinced that e-commerce was the future and that stores were irrelevant. And the truth was, we were just not seeing that. Most sales still typically happen in a store. So in-store sales are still crucial to the retail industry. They are what drive the industry forward. And when we actually went to stores and asked them, what does your tech look like? How are you keeping in touch with customers? We were hearing, what do you mean by tech? I use a physical notebook. I use a pen to keep in touch with my customers. I have all my customers' personal information on my own personal device. We're like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? So we saw all of these issues, and quite frankly, all these issues that a B2B salesperson has not faced in centuries at this point. So we really saw this white space, especially for retail brands that definitely could not afford to build their own solution, sort of a custom solution. And that's really where we found our footing, especially with the success and sort of growth of Shopify, being able to say that companies were really looking for solutions like Shopify that complement what Shopify offers. And so we really piggybacked off that.
So you mentioned it very briefly there. Do you find there's a lot of reluctance to embrace new technology or new ideas? Do you have to do a lot of selling to kind of convince people that this is the way things need to go?
I think we really followed sort of the adoption curve on that. So when we got started, we went to the companies we thought would be most open to a new technology, first-time founders, people who were just building something from the ground up. And so what that meant was we went to people who understood and had built on Shopify. So that to us was the initial clue that they wanted something cloud-based, they wanted something subscription, they wanted something off the shelf. And so those sort of, at that point, maybe they were running a couple of pop-ups, they were e-com first. And those brands were much easier to talk to than who you sort of picture when you hear retail, right? So we were not going after Nordstrom, we weren't going after Macy's, we weren't going after these huge big box retailers or anything like that, or department stores, because why in the world would they work with a startup like us? We barely had a product. So we needed to go to the people who actually were excited about working with something new and exciting.
Really good explanation there. Could you just elucidate a little bit more on your primary focal points at the moment, or any ongoing projects that you might?
So we've built this incredible CRM. We've been operating since 2019. We work with some amazing brands like Allbirds and Glossier and, really headliners in the omnichannel space. What we finally launched was actually something that, if you are just e-com or if you're a one-store business, you can also take advantage of, which is our product called Sales Chat. And so that to me is the most exciting sort of next step for Endear. Sales Chat is, think about the support chat that you would use on any company's site. In the bottom right corner, there's a little bubble. Most of the time, that conversation revolves around two questions. Where's my order and how do I make a return? And quite frankly, most retailers are not interested in answering that question. That's not what drives their business forward. They have to provide good service. I think that's crucial. But really who they want to help first is like, hey, I want to buy this thing, but I don't know what size I am. Or, hey, is there a way I could try this on? Or, this earring looks different in this picture than that picture. Answering sales questions is first and foremost what is on a brand's mind. And so we really oriented Sales Chat as a product around getting to those questions first. And most importantly, having those questions answered by a product expert, someone who really knows, the jean is going to hit you closer to the ankle, or it's going to be long on your frame. So making sure that the right people are answering, quite frankly, the questions that are going to drive more transactions on your site. That's really the idea of Sales Chat.
And have there been any surprises on this journey? I mean, there's things you go into and you think, I anticipate this is going to happen. And it usually does that way. But anything that's kind of flagged up and you thought, actually, I didn't expect that to come up in the conversation. I didn't expect the customers would need that particular requirement.
I think that's the fun part of building new features is at least once you have a base of customers, you can make all these guesses. But I think what we try to do is sort of underbuild and certainly put something in front of them, because otherwise you're just talking in hypotheticals. What matters to them, you would never guess, or we would never guess. We always think we know, like, this is important and this is going to matter because then they can do this. And they're like, nah, that doesn't really matter. Like, we really just want to make sure, but this feature, which you've kind of talked about, but like haven't seemed to build yet, we're going to need that. So I think that customer feedback is something that we take incredibly seriously. And it is the thing that drives every business decision, because we just need to make sure that we're building something that our target audience actually wants.
Are there any tech trends that you're currently catching your attention within the industry? And if there are, what are the driving factors behind their significance?
How many people come on here and say AI? Everybody?
I was going to ask you a question about AI, but I thought let's see where this one goes first.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think for everyone, it is AI and it should be AI. So it's AI for us, certainly. I think that the truth is, I forget who said it, and I say it whether it's about AI or anything else. I think what's really important is nothing should ever just be for the sake of AI, right? And it doesn't have to be in your face either. I think when we use AI as a company, you don't even need to necessarily sell it, right? Like, everyone now is an AI company, but it's the same as when everyone was a tech company because they had an e-com site. It's like, those are not the same thing. I think everyone should be using AI to enhance their operations as a company, to enhance their product, to make things work more smoothly. I think for us, a lot of the time, what it means is using it behind the scenes to make the product better, even if the user doesn't know. And then for our users, giving them the power of AI, even if their customers, and especially if their customers don't know. How much more quickly can you get your work done when your work used to be so manual? That is sort of the objective when it comes to AI technology for us.
Have you been surprised by the pace at which AI has developed and it's kind of like dominant, or it's starting to become dominant in almost every field of business possible? Is that something that was like unexpected for you?
So a little bit more about me. I am not a developer. My co-founder is an incredible designer and developer, and we have an amazing CTO. So they lead everything related to product and engineering at Endear. But as a layman, I think that gives me even better perspective, which is like, I can't run from this thing. You know, I'm not on every blog about technology, and this thing is so in my face that I really do put it. I just heard from enough people, and I feel the same way, which is like, there was the internet, there was the smartphone, and then there was AI. And so I think right now we're still in a very cool stage where people are playing around with this new tool and trying to figure out how to incorporate it, where to incorporate it, where does it really fit in. But I think at the end of the day, given enough time, it'll just become another part of our world that we don't even think about anymore. It will just become so embedded in how we operate.
And so we've talked about the AI there. So let's talk a little bit about human contact a little bit. So when you were establishing this company, how important was networking to you, if at all? And if it was important, has that changed in terms of like how useful networking is now that you're at the stage you are?
All of our first customers came through network. So I think that's true for a lot of startups or a lot of founders. Your first customers kind of just need to trust you, whether or not your product is necessarily perfect for what they need. And so I would say in the early days, that was super important. I think a lot of the time networking versus what I just said, which is like our customers were from my network, two separate things. Networking as a channel for growth is a really long game. And so I think it's really important. I think I get more out of it from networking maybe with peers and networking with complementary partners and things like that, where you're getting more business ideas. You can sort of talk shop. I think that's super fun. I think at the stage that we're at, again, it's so long game that the more you treat it like the long game, the better off it is, so that you're not, quite frankly, like hard selling every single person you ever meet. I think that's an unpleasant experience. So I think you can sort of divide networking in my mind across like, what is the end goal? So are you networking with partners, with customers, with investors, with potential advisors? All of those things should influence your broad thinking. But at the end of the day, people just, it's personal. People want to enjoy speaking to you. So you need to make it a pleasure to speak to you. And you can't make it unpleasant by making it all about how do I get something out of this conversation. So I think the more you can treat it like, hey, this is just me growing my network, this is me learning something, I think the better off people will be.
It's a really smart answer. I've not heard that one before. It's really interesting the way that you position that. So we've done the networking now and your company's there. What's your company doing that makes it stand out from the competitors?
I would say for us, neither Janesh nor I have a retail background. And I actually think that's helped us tremendously. We take so much of our inspiration from how the CRM industry has grown in the tech space, rather than assuming that or sort of using old retail behavior as the inspiration. And so I think what makes our product stand out is that it is incredibly data-driven and incredibly user-friendly, because we understood that our users don't necessarily spend all their time actually at a computer. In fact, most of the time, they're probably face-to-face with a customer in the store. And the company has so much data that they've never given a store associate access to. So just to give you the most obvious example, right? The company at large has every customer that's ever shopped with them. They have their name, their address, probably their phone number, definitely their email. And they also have tons and tons of product imagery. So much. They spend most of their budget on taking pictures of products. And yet their store associates who are face-to-face with customers have to duplicate all of that by hand. They are capturing emails and phone numbers in store on their phone when they speak to somebody or when someone doesn't buy. And then when they're speaking to them, they retake pictures. They literally retake pictures of clothes on themselves or on a mannequin. And so at the end of the day, they're doing all this duplication and to a much more subpar degree, right? That data is not reliable. It's floating in the ether. And so what we really said is you need to trust your store associates with this information, and you're going to probably 10x their productivity by just allowing us to help you share that data in a safe way and give it to them in a way that's digestible and understandable, in a way that they are already really equipped to use for basically driving more sales.
So we've talked a lot about the past and kind of the present there, but what does the future, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but what does the future hold for you? Is it plain sailing ahead, or are you like prepared for choppy seas?
I would say, yeah, we're looking at, I hope smooth sailing. We've definitely had an incredible couple of months of just seeing the market really understand what we've built and really appreciate the product. And so for us, it's now, again, sort of circling back with our customers and saying, what more can we do from you? And then also putting, our eyes on that and saying, well, we can't do everything for you, as much as some of them might want that, which is an incredibly high compliment. So it becomes, okay, well, what are you looking for and what are we really good at building and how do the two connect? But I think what we've found is, as I said earlier, it's the data and the data collection and the sort of surfacing that data in a really logical and easy to understand way that really makes Endear stand out. And so where we sit, we have to ask the question, how does this feature or this product feed into your overall understanding of your customer and giving you an even better way to build a relationship with that customer? Everything, quite frankly, stems from that.
If you were to look at yourself and say, okay, these are the 3 qualities that have helped me to get where I am today, what 3 qualities would you say you have?
I would say it would be 1, ridiculous optimism. I think every founder has that and they might not realize it, but I think to a lot of people, starting a company sounds like, are you out of your mind? Why? Why do you do that? So I think that's probably something that every founder has in common. You said 3, I'm given 3. So optimism would be 1. I would say being decisive is another. I don't really like not having a path or wavering. So I think that the truth is, a lot of the time, one thing that I've had to get comfortable with is you're working with not that much data as a startup. You only have so many customers or so many experiences. So you kind of I have had to learn to just accept a data point of 1 as much data as you're going to get and just say, maybe this is wrong, but this is what we know. So we're going to work off of this. We're going to make a decision as if this is fact, and we're going to roll with that. And if we need to change in the future, we can. So I think sort of not wavering because, time is really of the essence. That is really important. And then the last, I think, would be humility, in the sense of it is so important to realize that, again, I'm a first-time founder. I'm a first-time leader. Every time we hire, that is something new in terms of I am now managing this many people and then this many people. I can only really expect myself to be so good compared to someone who has been leading companies for 20 or 30 years. So remembering that there is so much more to learn, and there's something to learn probably from every person that I interact with. I think remembering that is really critical in order to keep an open mind.
Amazing. And when you're looking at growth, are you always in the growth mindset? You're constantly trying to grow the company as fast as possible? Or do you have a different way? You might go through growth phases, or are you trying to have just organic growth?
We are definitely not a growth at all costs business. We really think about growing a sustainable business, growing a business that will last, and sort of, I think part of that comes from not wanting to abandon our customers. There's nothing worse than the idea that we had such poor management that even though we had a product that customers loved and wanted to pay for, we somehow failed. That to me would be criminal, because you have all the pieces of a working business and you manage to do something wrong to compromise that. So we don't really want to compromise that. We think that if we have customers that love us and quite frankly want to pay us what our product is worth, we need to do everything in our power to actually just continue to operate. And sometimes that means not growing as fast as maybe other companies do. But I think the truth is we'll last longer than those companies will.
So it sounds like you've got a really strong moral compass. And you mentioned also that you have ridiculous levels of optimism. So when times are particularly challenging or things aren't going quite the way that you want them to, is it that optimism that gets you through? Or if it isn't, what is it that drives you forward and helps you to control the situation?
It's our customers, for sure, in sort of a twofold way, which is I am serving the customers that I've always wanted to work with. I truly love as a consumer many of the brands that we work with, and hearing them love our product is what makes it all worth it, is what keeps me personally going. And so I think, I'm sure a lot of founders probably have said this, when times are not as good, I think it's important to look back and remember, when we only had, say, 5 customers, or when we were just starting, and now looking at how much we are ingrained in many of our customers' businesses. That to me is the biggest motivator of all. Is it's not like these companies are just sort of like casually like doing us a favor and saying they use Endear. No, we are like mission critical for a lot of them. And so, that is such a sign of whatever's happening internally, whatever's happening maybe with that next customer. Let's look back and remember that, we matter to a lot of businesses. And I think that's the biggest motivator.
And when you were growing up, did you always know, yes, no, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, it's definitely coming? Or did it kind of like just by happenstance, you thought, oh, maybe I'll play my hand at this?
I would say I always wanted to start a company, run a company. I had no idea it would be a tech company. I think, honestly, where all this came from was I thought I would be running the business for a creative brand builder, someone who wanted to start a consumer business, and I would be sort of the flip side of that. So they would create and I would sort of sell and grow. And so on some level, that is what I've done, which is I found an incredible product leader, but a tech product leader. And he and I, from the beginning, it was like, you build it, I'll sell it. And we grew from there. And our customers became those brands, the brands that I always wanted to work with.
And you mentioned kind of the division of labor between you and your other co-founder. Do you have to wear a lot of hats, or do you stay rigidly into this is my role and this is what I'm focused on and that's what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I always joke that I'm admin and CEO. So my responsibilities really span the commercial side of the business. I would say, like, I love product. I get to give my feedback on product, but at the end of the day, sort of what Janesh says goes. He has total final say on the product. And I think actually, again, being decisive, like giving him that power lets us operate so much more efficiently than if every single thing was a joint decision we had to agree on. It's like I can give my 2 cents and he can accept it or reject it or incorporate it. And so for me, I think, yes, I did start off wearing many hats, but I am truly grateful every time I get to cast one of them off. Fortunately or unfortunately, every time I cast one off, another one comes. So like I cast off sales, I gain legal, right? So that's just the founder experience.
Very interesting. And we are coming to the end of the time, but I decided to ask you one more question. Since you talked about the qualities that you had as an entrepreneur, what advice would you give to someone who is an inspiring entrepreneur?
I would say, I think the first quality I mentioned, you can't fake. I think most people would just have to have it, and that's why you're even bothering to be an entrepreneur. So that probably is already taken care of. I think if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, the best thing you can do is be curious and really try to understand and go, unfortunately, probably go deep and go broad and go wide on a lot of things. But then the truth is, build something that you are going to, this is not a trait, this is just something you should do. I'm so sorry, that's not what you asked me. But you have to love what you do, because there are going to be really hard times. So if there's something, be passionate would be the great way of phrasing this. Be passionate about what you're doing. And I would say there have been so many times where people have been like, well, you could go over there and do that. And that's probably a bigger business, or there are more customers than that. I was like, yeah, but I can't build that because I don't care about that problem. So someone should build it, but it shouldn't be me. So I think just remembering that, like, there are so many good ideas. And I think the other big assumption for a lot of founders is it needs to be massive. It doesn't need to be massive. Plenty of people start really great companies that, support their lifestyle or get to a certain size. And so I think what's most important is you're building something that you are passionate about and that you love and love working on every single day, even when it's hard.
And what an incredible advice to end this interview on. So, Leigh, well, thank you again so much for talking with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
That was Leigh Sevin, co-founder at Endear.